You ever see a film and you really, really like it, and you see it a couple more times, and the reaction is still the same? And then you watch it again sometime after that, and it just flounders. That's what happened to me with Targets from 1968. So Targets is Peter Bogdanovich's directorial debut. So the movie has two parallel storylines to it. The first is about Boris Karloff's character, who's kind of a Hollywood has-been. He's
old, and people are starting to forget who he is, and he wants to go out with a bang, and he's unhappy, of course, whatever. And Peter Bogdanovich is his assistant. Boris Karloff had been such an iconic figure for decades and decades, by 1968. The storyline with his character does mirror Karloff himself in reality pretty well. And the other storyline in this involves this young man. He's like in his 20s or early 30s. And he just goes a little funny in the head and goes on a killing spree. It is more exciting than and more interesting than Boris Karloff's things. As I said, New Wave of American cinema, they were really pushing the buttons with violence, really pushing the buttons with sexuality, really pushing the buttons with drugs. We don't really get to know this man's motives as to why he feels like killing people. I mean, when we first meet him and he's buying a gun, we don't really think much of it. But then when he puts the gun in the trunk of his car, there's dozens of more neatly placed in the trunk of his car. So that can capture someone's attention and really get them interested as to what's going to happen next with this man. But with Boris Karloff's story, it's kind of an arrested development. He's wallowing in pity about getting old and fading away, and it kind of just stays there. And Peter Bogdanovich, he hasn't acted in much of the films that he's directed, but I do think that he's fine here as an actor, and he's really good in the directing portion of it. Bogdanovich has always been a mighty fine director, and I do think that even though Targets, the watch of Targets that had just happened with me wasn't very strong, wasn't a good one, I still do think that Bogdanovich's directing is still top class. The way that the camera is able to move, and the cutting and the graphic matches, all that stuff right there, that Bogdanovich is able to do it, that's all really good stuff. I mean, you learn from the best. So eventually, while the man's killing spree is happening, things do end up converging into a pretty interesting shootout at the end. Because, of course, New Wave American cinema, killing, there's got to be a shootout, right? The movie doesn't have a whole lot of violence. What they tried to focus more on is the tension building behind it. So that way, when someone does end up getting sniped, it's more of a shocker. It has more of an emotional punch to it. And so, yeah, I do think that Bogdanovich going in that sort of approach instead of a Bonnie and Clyde sort of approach or a James Bond sort of thing was a good touch, because you don't want to go too overboard. I know it was the 60s, people were really pushing their buttons, but at the same time, people back then knew about restraints really well. I don't know what it was. My most recent watch with this film really It was so lackluster. I want to discard my most recent watch with the Targets and just reminisce about about my watches beforehand. So my watches of Targets before those, that's what I'm going to grade Targets by, and that is 3 stars out of 4. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you again next time.